I don't want to be political here, but let's just talk facts. Barack Obama was wildly popular in Germany, wildly popular. They loved him.
Didn't he give that speech before? It was before he was president in
When
Germany,
he was campaigning,
to like 1 million people or something crazy.
And he maintained his popularity. People loved him. But he didn't get any of his signature programs or policies through. And I mean that. You look at TTIP, which was the economic signature program of the Obama administration. The Germans killed it. They literally led the fight to kill it. Nord Stream 2, we said don't build it. They went ahead and built it. Jacopali, the Nazi prison guard living in New York City for 12 years. The U.S. courts said, get him out of here. He lied to us. We want him back in Germany. The Germans wouldn't take him. The entire 8 years of the Obama administration, they asked, will you take this Nazi prison guard back? They ignored him. Defense spending. We asked in very nice ways, can you raise your defense spending? You know, we think that you should be a better NATO member. They largely didn't do it. And so all of those issues were solved under the Trump administration. So I've actually said to Chancellor Merkel and to the foreign minister and to others in Germany, you're going to have to deal with some tough tweets.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with some pushing and some ribbing, because the only way that we can read this is that the Donald Trump style has worked.
So Trump, okay, so let's just sort of piecing this all together then. Now you have this guy who you don't have to walk that tightrope with.
We had 17 candidates in the primary, and Donald Trump really just stuck out. And so I was really excited to work for him. I mean, look, this is a guy who was very clear in the campaign that he wanted to treat everybody the same. He really did. And so I liked working for him because he was challenging us on the Iraq War implementation and saying, you know, I thought it was a disastrous decision. He was critiquing Bush and McCain and Romney's positions on the Iraq War in a Republican primary. Now, everybody around me had said, oh, he's done. But that was all the Washington type people who were playing by the rules. And if you took their rules, he would have been done. But the primary is really about the people outside of Washington. And that's where I felt like I was reading the situation better than what they were, because my sphere wasn't what the Washington crowd was saying about he's done and he's not acting like a Republican. It was what the Republican base or the people and how they were responding to, yeah, that's an obvious, the Iraq War management didn't go well. And so that was an honest assessment of, you know, some people say touching the third rail of politics, of saying the things you're not supposed to say. And I like that.
But Rick, I don't understand. Everybody says, if you listen to the mainstream media, that everyone in the world, they don't respect us anymore and they think he's a buffoon and all of these things. Could that possibly not be true? I mean, that's what the New York Times is telling us. I mean, really, joking aside, like, what are you seeing, like, now as an ambassador, and when you go to all the NATO things and all the places you go to and all the meetings, do you sense, like, that people suddenly don't respect us? They used to respect us, they don't, or we're not the patsy anymore, perhaps?
Yeah.
Or, like, what is the real temperature?
So I think what you're really asking is, does his style work or does it not work, right? Compared to Barack Obama's style, which is much different. I think we should be honest and say we got two different styles. Absolutely. Washington rulemaking will tell you that Trump's style does not work because he doesn't participate in what their rules are. But let's look at that. Let's look at whether or not his style works, because I'll take this argument all day long. I don't want to be political here, but let's just talk facts. Barack Obama was wildly popular in Germany, wildly popular. They loved him.
Didn't he give that speech before? It was before he was president in
When
Germany,
he was campaigning,
to like 1 million people or something crazy.
And he maintained his popularity. People loved him. But he didn't get any of his signature programs or policies through. And I mean that. You look at TTIP, which was the economic signature program of the Obama administration. The Germans killed it. They literally led the fight to kill it. Nord Stream 2, we said don't build it. They went ahead and built it. Jacopali, the Nazi prison guard living in New York City for 12 years. The U.S. courts said, get him out of here. He lied to us. We want him back in Germany. The Germans wouldn't take him. The entire 8 years of the Obama administration, they asked, will you take this Nazi prison guard back? They ignored him. Defense spending. We asked in very nice ways, can you raise your defense spending? You know, we think that you should be a better NATO member. They largely didn't do it. And so all of those issues were solved under the Trump administration. So I've actually said to Chancellor Merkel and to the foreign minister and to others in Germany, you're going to have to deal with some tough tweets.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with some pushing and some ribbing, because the only way that we can read this is that the Donald Trump style has worked.
Do you think they secretly like it, but sort of publicly? I don't mean Germany specifically, but generally that countries and leaders, they have to sort of pretend that they don't like Trump, but as they see the U.S. sort of reassert itself, and maybe even as he forces them to pay a little bit more, actually pay their share, that in a weird way they almost do like it because it helps give them a little bit of their sovereignty back, or a little leadership to look for?
No, that's 100% for sure. I think the publics in Europe like to have the ability to have their sovereignty back. They love, and President Trump has said this to Chancellor Merkel, I don't blame you for not paying your NATO bill
right,
and for buying
sweet.
cheap Russian gas and having a $69 billion surplus over us and having a surplus and 50,000 American troops protecting you. I don't blame you. Who wouldn't do that if you were the Chancellor of Germany? But then he says, but now it stops here because you've outsmarted all these other presidents and now I have to stick up for my people.
So if Trump is right about all this stuff and now countries are paying more and all of these things.
He is totally right.
Yeah, so granted, so he
billions,
so he
hundreds
is,
of billions.
Right, so suddenly countries are starting to pay their share. Is it just what you're saying, that it was just the way Washington always worked, and that it, or is it just that we refused to use any influence on countries? Like that it was just always easier to just be like, we'll pay for everything. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
I think some of it is our own fault. And you're getting at
that's what, I guess that's what I'm asking. That it was just, we kept bringing in people that just were always like, we're paying, and why wouldn't we pay?
And we got to be nice, and they're pushing back, and we want to be pro-European, and so let's just have a dinner party and
these people are having a lot of parties.
Yeah, and sitting in European capitals, and really, we have all of these people in European capitals working at our embassies. I think our embassies should be mini commerce sections. I've got a whole bunch of people at the embassy who are super smart and very committed to the United States and do great public service. But I have come to the conclusion that having a whole team of people watching the German political system and reporting back to Washington by writing cables about what's happening in the governor's race, minister-president's race in a state in Germany, and all of that stuff, super interesting, completely irrelevant in many ways. Mm-hmm. We can get that information off the internet after it happens. We don't need reporting officers to do that. What we do need are economic specialists on LNG, liquid natural gas, or economic specialists on medical devices to help us get U.S. companies growing in Europe. I think that our embassies need to be transformed, less on the political side, less about the politics of the country that we can get through the internet. All this was established before we had the internet. And now we need to turn these embassies into America First economic models, just like what other countries do. We're the only country in the world that gets in trouble for pushing ourselves forward. Mm-hmm. Everybody's doing it, but we're the one that gets in trouble for saying, oh, how dare you? Yeah.
Did you, by any chance, read that book that I've got right there, Jerome Harzoni, The Virtue of Nationalism?
No, I haven't.
Because his whole idea
I am
is
reading
which
Douglas
one?
Murray's, though.
Oh, there you go. Well, there's a couple good Douglas Murray books over here. But the basic premise of the book is that strong nations, that you have to be a strong nation first, so be America first, be Germany first, be whatever your country is first. And that's how you, by being a strong nation first, then you can create some sort of international community that makes sense. But that really we're just doing it all backward, or we've been doing it backwards for decades, which is we put ourselves down and thinking that we're achieving some higher goal or something, and then we end up screwing over everybody.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes you have to be able to put forward in a in a pushy way your position in order to get things done. And that doesn't mean that the relationship is ruined, but it just means that this is a priority. And so you're going to push it harder. I think that's been one of the problems that we've had, is just this kind of status quo. Let's all, you're supposed to say what you want and I'm supposed to say what I want. And then we kind of cut the baby in half and we go away and go to lunch. To me, that's not diplomacy. I mean, we have to be able to push forward our agenda. By the way, I've been in thousands of diplomatic discussions, thousands. I've never been in one where the other side doesn't ask for something and we ask for something in return. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
This is called diplomacy.
Yeah,
what do you want? What do I want? It's this whole thing. And the idea that you're asking for something is not a quid pro quo. It's called diplomacy. This is exactly what we do. So we show up to a meeting and we give our agenda of what we'd like you to do and what we need, and then you do that. And we pick and choose. And when you make it a priority, this is what I would say on the Giacoppoli, the Nazi prison guard thing. When I showed up in Germany and I made this a priority, and I said, this return of the Nazi prison guard, I brought it up in my first meeting with the foreign minister. And you know what the foreign minister said to me after I brought it up? I've never heard of this case.
Huh. I mean, that's incredible.
The State Department had told me, oh, we've asked for 12 years. It's going to go nowhere, but you should bring it up. In my Senate confirmation, I got a written question. Will you make Giacoppoli, the return of the Nazi prison guard, will you make it a priority? I said yes, and I did it. And then President Trump said to me, you should really get that Nazi prison guard returned. And I'm like, I'm on it. I brought it up in every meeting. I made it a priority. Had to educate them. They returned them.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.